which happens to be the last lap in this year's Africa Agribusiness Show Colloquium, which we started 2 days ago. This afternoon, the topic is agribusiness MSMEs in West Africa. And this afternoon's session is going to be moderated by Ms. Victoria Madedo. And the other participants are going to be Mrs. Bukola Awosoya, who is going to be represented by Mr. Joshua Zira and Mr. Theophilus Onadeko. Ms. Madedo holds a bachelor's degree in agricultural economics from the University of Benin, Edo State, Nigeria, an MBA, and currently pursuing a master's in marketing and innovation at the Metropolitan School of Business in the United Kingdom. She's an experienced development consultant with a focus on the agricultural sector and currently group head business development at BOI Investment and Trust Company, a subsidiary at the Bank of Industry Nigeria. She has volunteered as mentor for Google Accelerator Launchpad 2017, Lagos State Government Ready Set Work Program 2017, International Business Accelerator 2018, Lagos State Ministry of Health Consumer Service 2019, and Lagos State Government Yes Agri 2020. She has worked as resource person for several organizations, including Lagos Business School, Lagos State Government, Edo State Government, My Farm Base Africa, Invest Africa Magazine, JMSF Agribusiness and World Bank Project, and the Global Alliance for Improved Nutrition and Takeria Institute Mini MBA. She sits as board advisor for several agribusiness organizations, including Umuebe Farms Limited, Africa Agribusiness Alliance, Lexer Products and Packaging Limited, Fisox Company, among others. Victoria Madedo is going to be our moderator for this afternoon's session. And also in that group we're going to have two people, the duo of Mrs. Bukola Awosoya and Mr. Theophilus Onadeko. Mrs. Bukola Awosoya is Group Head, Agricultural Finance and Solid Minerals of Sterling Bank PLC, a graduate of agriculture from the prestigious University of Ibadan. She has been active in the field of finance, particularly in the agricultural sector. She has over 29 years banking experience, and in her position as Group Head Agri Finance, she is responsible for managing the agriculture portfolio of the bank by ensuring that the bank lends profitably to the sector by providing innovative solutions across the value chain. Our roles also increase and are not limited to formulating the strategy for the department, research, development of products, information dissemination, market linkages, advocacy in the sector, among others. It is to her credit that she was able to pioneer the agriculture finance department in Sterling Bank PLC, and under her leadership, the bank became a role model for other banks in the implementation of agricultural finance schemes in Nigeria. This has garnered for the bank awards at national levels and international recognitions. She is synonymous with firsts, responsible for implementing so many innovations within the bank, and amongst which are the first blockchain digital commodity platform in Africa. She has participated in several local and international trainings and workshops in diverse subject areas, such as youth and gender, risk management, compliance, management, digitization, and leadership, to mention a few. She also finished from Harvard Business School, United States of America, Columbia Business School, USA, Wharton Business School, USA, Craig Business School, and Fresno University, amongst others. She is a member of the Institute of Directors and Chartered Institute of Bankers. And lastly, We have Mr. Theophilus Adewale Onodeko, an agribusiness and development finance executive, chartered banker, and trained economist with core expertise in corporate strategy, impact investing, SME and agribusiness value chain finance, financial technology, and development consulting. He has over 20 years experience gained from global, regional, and local institutions such as the International Finance Corporation, the private sector arm of the World Bank Group, the financial sector deepening Africa, German Development Corporation, Halifax Bank of Scotland, UK, AXA Financial Services, United Kingdom, Nigeria Incentive-Based Risk-Sharing System for Agricultural Lending, a Central Bank of Nigeria Corporation, and the United Bank for Africa PLC, Nigeria. He is currently Executive Director of Agribusiness at the Asset and Resource Management Group, the largest non-bank financial institution in Nigeria. He had his MBA in finance from Manchester Business School, United Kingdom. He holds a master's in development economics and policy from the University of Manchester, United Kingdom, and a bachelor's in agricultural economics and farm management from the Federal University of Agriculture, Abeokuta, Nigeria. He's an associate of the Chartered Institute of Bankers of Nigeria and certified associate in project management from George Washington University School of Business, United States of America. Ladies and gentlemen, you are welcome to this afternoon session. And very shortly, I would like to acknowledge our sponsors. We have Farmson Company Limited and Livestock Fleets PLC as sponsors, while we also have as partners Agro Nigeria, Livestock News, Rome Business School, Nigerian Association of Chambers of Commerce, Industry, Mines and Agriculture, NASIMA. We have the Federation of West African Chambers of Commerce. We have the West African Fertilizer Association. And we also have the Institute
Apologies for the break, please. Mrs. Olubanjo, you can go ahead. We'll go on a short break when you are done with the introductions. Thank you.
Lending, whether to a farmer or to an agribusiness, shares many similarities with lending to other sectors, but due to the nature of agriculture, also has some significant differences. Banks and lenders need to be able to understand these differences so that they can design their products, monitoring, credit risk assessment, and repayment processes to account for them. As with lending to all clients, irrespective of which sector they operate in, a bank needs to consider the 5 C's when lending for agriculture clients: character, capacity, capital, collateral, conditions. However, there are also other essential factors to consider, as agriculture deals with nature, and this may affect a client's ability to repay the loan. These agriculturally specific factors need to be taken into account when assessing a client's ability to repay, when structuring a loan, and when monitoring the loan throughout the season. Special attention should be paid to price times production equals revenue. It is critical that bankers, when determining whether to lend to an agricultural client, be aware that cash flows are linked to the agricultural production cycle, that agricultural prices vary throughout a season, and that a variety of natural issues, including weather events and outbreaks of pests and diseases, can dramatically affect production yields. This means the bank needs to structure products to meet the production cycle of the agricultural activity being financed, understand in depth the value chain of the crop being financed, so as to identify where the major risks are and how they are being managed, including price risk. Risks are being effectively managed by the use of good agricultural practices, or where possible, using insurance. And develop a monitoring system to identify issues early on so that prompt corrective action can be taken. This may involve contracting agricultural experts to warn of impending issues. Lending to agriculture can be a great business, but it requires banks to understand the intricacies of agriculture and to develop appropriate processes, procedures, and products. This will ensure that lending is undertaken in a way that effectively takes into account agriculture-specific risks for the good of everyone.
Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon, Mr. Trophius. Please, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Good afternoon. Can you see me?
Yes, I can see you.
Okay.
Good to have you here this afternoon. Mr. Nwakama, good afternoon to you. A very good afternoon to you, Mr. Nwakama. Are you still in the room?
Hello, good afternoon. Yes, I am here.
Good to have you this afternoon. And Mr. Zika, representing Mrs. Awosonya. A very good afternoon to you. Okay, so let us go to the business of the day. Thank you everyone for participating, for joining us this afternoon to talk about a very important pain point in the agricultural sector in West Africa today. The conventional and alternative source of funding for agribusiness MSMEs in West Africa is the pain point we'll be discussing today. And I believe that the wonderful panelists that we have today will be giving us a very deep insight about the alternatives and how the conventional are also catching up quickly using technology to drive funding in the agribusiness space. As we all know, access to funding is a critical issue that has been highlighted over the years by players in the food and non-food sector of agriculture in West Africa. With full understanding of this problem, a lot of organizations, mostly ag techs, are proffering alternative funding structure, which is set to include smallholder farmers. However, statistics has also shown that there's no improvement in the livelihood of the smallholder farmers and entrepreneurs in the agricultural sector, either through conventional or alternative source of funding. My question, starting from Mr. Tofilas Onedako, as an organization, what are you doing differently to disrupt the funding ecosystem, either conventionally or leveraging technology to ensure inclusion of smallholder farmers to give effective and adequate access to funding?
Thank you, Mrs. Madedo, for that question. I hope you can hear me loud and clear.
I can hear you loud and clear.
Thank you very much. So before I answer, let me give a brief introduction about my organization. Asset and Resource Management Group is a non-bank financial institution. We are the largest in Nigeria. We are traditionally an asset management company. We currently have about 1.5 trillion naira under management. And so I wanted to give that background so that people can understand that we're an asset management company, and then we have three buckets of businesses. So we have the asset management business, we have the private equity fund business, and then we have the infrastructure fund business. So I work in the private equity fund business. And so my perspective today, I will try to stay within private equity because I have Sterling Bank, I have Nassau on the call. I will allow them deal with other aspects. Now to answer your question directly, currently we have, so you have players in the sector, players like Farm Crowdy, Thrive Agri, who are in the forefront of using technology to mobilize retail funds and deploy it to agribusinesses. Within ARM, we are primarily an asset management company. We have technology that we use, for retail investors. So we have one product that we call ARM Payday Investor, which we use for, mobilizing funds from retail investors, and then we deploy into different businesses. We haven't activated the agribusiness retail investment platform, obviously because we're regulated, SEC regulates ARM, and so we haven't really gone into that. What we do primarily is that we co-invest with entrepreneurs. So if I see an entrepreneur, an agribusiness entrepreneur who has great ideas, who is looking for an entity like ARM to partner with him or her to take that vision to the next level, that is my, I would say, my sweet spot. That's what we invest in. But in terms of what we are doing in terms of inclusion, we are about deploying that payday investor and then be able to mobilize funding and then be able to disburse to smallholders who are part of the agribusiness entities that we invest. Remember, our focus is to invest in a big agribusiness firm, which then has smallholder farmers in their network. So these are the tools that we are planning to deploy. We haven't deployed, but because we are not as active as Farm Crowdy, Thrive Agri, and the rest of them.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Mr. Theophilus. It is very Can you hear me? Hello, Mr.
Yes, you are
Wankam.
back now. We can hear you
Yeah, I
now.
can hear you now.
Yes, we can hear you now.
Thank you very much. Knowing fully well that NISAL is at the forefront of ensuring that these smallholder farmers are included through their various activities. However, statistics this shows that there's no improvement in the livelihood of these entrepreneurs. Can you tell us what NISAL is doing differently or will be doing differently to ensure this inclusion using technology? Thank you.
Thank you, Victoria. Thanks. Hello to you. It's been a while. It's interesting the angle you're taking it from, and this gives me a good opportunity to highlight what NISAL is actually doing with respect to the smallholder farmer. You know, you can't wish away the smallholder farmer. The bulk of the land holding is held by the smallholder farmer. Hence, the difficulty in commercial agriculture, the taking of the way we would have expected it. So NISAL has taken it a step further by trying to structure the field with what we call the agro-geo cooperatives. Prior to this time, you had the regular cooperatives. The regular cooperatives, I mean, I sit in Abuja, I can be in a cooperative in my home state, Abia State, but I don't have any land, but it's just an agglomeration of people who just come together and they say they want to do farming. That's quite different from what NISAL is doing and what NISAL is promoting now. The agro-geo cooperative concept looks at it from the angle of the land as the productive asset. So for us to form a cooperative, we must all have land within proximal spaces to ourselves, and then we have to come together so that our land is brought together to enhance mechanized agriculture that will improve yield and that can also bring finance to that group. So let me give you an assumption. One farmer in, I'll use Edo State, Upila, that has half hectare of land, and on his half hectare of land, he needs 250,000, and a bank in VI is processing his loan request from Upila branch for 250,000. That's not a credible ticket for anybody to look at. But reverse the roles. So that one farmer in Upila, where they can farm granite, for instance, there's someone that is close to him. There's another person that is close to that next person. So you use social engineering to bring them together into a joint cooperative. Aggregate
Interesting.
lands together. Now you have a common commodity on that land. That common commodity happens to be the strength that will finance what they're doing, because using our mapping to market technology, we're going to map proceeds or produce from that catchment area to a processor or to an aggregator or to a produce merchant who buys produce. So if I'm able to get them together on, say, 50 hectares, because down south there's not much land. In the north you can get as much as 250 hectares, 2,000 hectares. So let's use the small size so that to show you is an inclusive thing that involves everybody in Nigeria, no matter where you are. So if we're able to get them in those 50 hectare lots, it's easier for me on a 250,000 ticket per hectare to ask a bank to finance 50 hectares.
Mm.
50 hectares at 250,000, at 250,000 on 50 hectares gives me a deal size of 12.5 million, which makes sense for a retail finance to take that as a deal ticket. On this deal ticket, I am able to activate my credit risk guarantee and give a 75% credit risk guarantee to the bank to fund this farmer. While
Mm.
funding them, I am 100% sure that with our mapping to market strategy, an off-taker has already been identified. So I have been able to do three things. Bring these farmers together, into a cooperative, source funding for them, provide mechanization on their land, and provide access to market for them. With that, a bank can clearly see how a loan is extinguished at the end of the day. We're not looking for who is going to buy produce. So this is the mapping to market and the agro-cooperative structure which NISAL has come up with. Now,
Mr. Wakama, sorry, let me just take you up on that.
okay.
You talked about the Joe Cooperative. I
Yes.
would want the perspective of Sterling Bank, Mrs. Awosanya. I don't know if the Sterling Bank representative is on the call.
Dr.
Hello,
Zero.
Mr. Joshua.
Yeah. Hello. Yes.
Okay, good afternoon. Welcome. So, Mr. Joshua, NISAL just took, Mr. Wakama just gave a very deep insight of how they're using Joe Cooperative to ensure they stimulate access to funding for smallholder farmers and players in the agricultural sector. What is the collaboration between Sterling Bank, you as a commercial bank, and NISAL to ensure that these farmers are able to access funding in an adequate way, one, and secondly, to ensure that technology drives it so that it is easy for us to see transparency and integrity in the process. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much, Mrs. Victoria. Eze, hi to you. It's a pleasure meeting you here again. And of course, talking about Sterling's collaboration with NISAL, we've been together since the inception of NISAL in terms of collaboration and working with NISAL. And because you know that NISAL actually, they, de-risk the sector and make it attractive even for commercial banks like us, some products. And therefore, as a commercial bank, yes, we try to fund the smallholder farmers, but again, we need to fund those smallholder farmers that are actually attractive to us. And talking about the agro-geomapping that Mr. Eze has talked about, definitely we've been partnering with them on that. And of course, when you want to actually fund farmers in their large numbers and in a very good cluster, you need an organization like NISA who actually have expertise in profiling these farmers and also profiling those locations so that you will not be funding pseudo cooperative, as he has said. And what we do in the recent times is to partner with them on various fronts. And most of the thing we do, again, we look at those in their clusters, location. And I'm telling you, one of the things this system of NISA has done is to demystify the issue of land. You discover that somebody will come to you and say, okay, I have 1 hectare, but in the real sense, it's less than an acre. And if you don't do your geomapping and every other thing, if you base your EOP, that's your economics of production, on 1 hectare, you discover that the guy only has less than a hectare, it will affect the yield. That's the output at the end, and ultimately the repayment will be impaired. So we are collaborating with them, and one of the things they have actually, with some of the sweeteners, we are having from them and in to smallholder farmers is their credit risk guarantee, which they give to smallholder farmers to the tune of about 75% of the loans in default. So in fact, what they are doing has helped us to see that we actually work with smallholder farmers in their large numbers. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Joshua, for that concise response, brief, and we got the takeout from it. The takeout is there is a good collaboration between Sterling Bank and NISAL. However, what are the methods to evaluate the impact? Because if you go on to different farmers group, cooperatives or social group, or even on social media, there is the complaint that there is no way to measure the performance of funding by financial institutions, whether conventional or the alternative funders, on the livelihood of smallholder farmers. And there seems to be a discrepancy between what the institutions are providing and what the farmers, not just farmers, but processors, understand as the opportunities that are provided by the financial institution. I don't know if Mr. Wakama can give a better insight to how we can give some level of confidence to farmers that these fundings actually take place, and there are measures for evaluating the impact of the funding, which will be transparent for everybody to see. Thank you.
Thank you, Victoria. Like Dr. Zira confirmed, this collaboration is real. And what forms your own measure of, it hasn't been standardized. The agribusiness community hasn't come out to say this is going to be what our standards are going forward. But we at NISAL, we've already developed what we call our own monitoring and evaluation system. We've set up our own indicators, which we track to help us report on what we're doing. And most of it fall around what you're used to, the ESG, the economic, environmental, social, and governance indicator. So we have our own matrix that we use to measure the impact of what we're doing. So part of what we do, or part of the parameters that we use, I will list out some of them for you, so that those listening can also take a cue from this. But if you want, we are not we are open to suggestions on how to make this better. We're open to suggestions on other parameters that we've not captured. That's why we're having this conference, and that's why we do the meet and greet that we do most times, the roundtables that we have with different value chain operators. So we'll look at productivity. We'll look for increased productivity supported on the smallholder farmers that we've supported. So what we'll check includes the yield per hectare, the hectares covered by mechanization, the hectares that we use improved seed on, the hectares covered by using the appropriate fertilizer, not just fertilizer, the appropriate fertilizer, and the hectares protected by crop protection CPP, and then the post-harvest loss encountered. One thing I want to make clear here is I hadn't told you that we have a team we call the field ICT team, which helps us in this monitoring. And the monitoring includes the use of various, technologies, including drone services, to check areas where we have farm investments, to monitor and also to provide early warning signals for us. On the ground, we have what we call boots on ground, the project monitoring, reporting, and remediation office. So in the 36 states of the Federation, there's a central bank in every state. And in each central bank is located our PMRO office that helps monitor projects. Projects reside in states, not in Abuja. All those states projects are. So, and these PMRO offices are equipped with mobility. They have vehicles, they have motorcycles, they have communication equipment, and they also have, there's a telecommunication link between them and head office where we can get information online real time, which we use in doing all these monitoring. Now, part of the things we monitor, part of the indicators that we monitor, I've told you about productivity, the market facilitation and increased profitability. We also monitor that. So we'll look at, I told you about the mapping to market concept that NISAL has. So in this mapping to market concept, aggregators, producers, processors, if you come to NISAL and say, I need this specific seed or this specific grain for maize, probably for popcorn production or for feed production, and then we'll go into the field. And Nigeria has been mapped today. If we're talking of maize production, the highest areas where you get maize production in Nigeria revolve around Katsina, Niger, and Kaduna State. Not that other places don't produce maize, but these are the areas that have been mapped technologically as the maize belt for Nigeria. So we map geocooperatives in those areas to these processors, such that if a bank brings funding for these geocooperatives to produce, well, at the end of that production cycle, harvest and produce harvested is handed over to the entity that has ordered that production. Payment is made to the farmer's account. Those loans are liquidated. It's a way of also increasing financial inclusion.
John.
The other things we also do, what are the other things we also do in terms of what we other monitoring index that we use includes insurance. You know, the level of insurance penetration is very low, and a lot of people need to be trained or need to be educated on the need for insurance, because we
Very,
need to use both the insurance and
very
micro-insurance sector of Nigeria. So we have developed specific and unique bespoke insurance products, which will also drive, which we use to drive production and loan facilitation for these farmers.
okay, Mr. Wakama, thank you very much. I would want to plead with you that on the chat box, in the chat box, sorry, kindly type out these indicators so that those listening in can easily have access to it, either screen grab it for future or mail it to themselves so that they can use to monitor and also suggest efficiently ways that they can measure these impact that you are listed.
Not a problem.
Mr. Theophilus, as an equity investor, Mr. Wakama has given us insight about how they partner with financial institutions and also verify their investment to ensure that effective implementation is done within that sector, even though that is another debate that we can have later today. However, for the sake of this conversation, let us hear your own insight about how you want to enter into the agricultural space with your equity product. And what means are you going to educate and enlighten the farmers that they can have access to equity from ARM as a means of funding their agricultural projects? Remember that a lot of farmers are at a point where their books are not fantastic in terms of record keeping. Some of them, in terms of production, they're not tracking their data. However, when it comes to technicalities, they are top notch in that aspect. How do you intend to improve and enter into the market given these challenges so that the farmers can have adequate access to your equity funding? Thank you. Please let us make it short so that we can have a very robust conversation from all perspectives. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much for that specific question. I would say that our approach to the sector is collaborative. What Eze has put on the table is what we have also plugged into. If I see a transaction where NASAL has mapped the smallholders into a very big, a geo cooperative, like he said, let's assume the geo cooperative is 500 hectares and they formed a cooperative. Let's assume that all the technology that is required to do monitoring, the quality seeds are there, there is irrigation, there is insurance. It makes it easy for somebody like ARM to then say, I'm going to put equity in this business. And when I put equity in that business, it's easy for Dr. Zira to then say, I'll provide debt because I can see that a lot of the risk has been covered. So we work collaboratively. In terms of exactly what we are doing, so ARM is an active participant in promoting impact investing in Nigeria. We participated in the setting up of the National Advisory Board for Impact Investing in Nigeria, because what is happening right now is there are a lot of broken aspects of what you call impact investing in Nigeria. So there's the supply side of capital, which we sit on. There's the demand side of capital, which is the question you've asked. There is advocacy. Around the policy environment, things are not coherent. So we are participating in that to make sure that we are promoting an environment where everything can be in place and it's easy for capital to flow into agribusinesses. In terms of exactly what we are doing to educate, these budding entrepreneurs on what we are doing, I said we are equity investors. I might not be able to invest in, let's say, 1,000 businesses. It's not possible. Maybe you can give loans to 1,000 businesses. That's possible. But by way of structure, equity is such a play where you have to cherry pick the ones that you will invest in. What we are promoting is also to piggyback on what Nestle is doing. Is that aggregation model. Now, I have an investee company somewhere in Ogun State, Southwest Nigeria. It's a 2,000 hectare farm. 2,000 hectare farm is an irrigated farm. Everything is automated. So we are using technology. But for me to include other small within the ecosystem is to leverage what a Nestle is doing and say, for example, let those entrepreneurs come and locate around this nucleus farm, which already has all the infrastructure, and then creates a market, because in that company I'm talking about, there is processing facility on that farm. And so it's easier for smaller enterprises to come together in those large cooperative, geo-cooperatives, such that when they produce, they have a ready market in that company that I have invested in. So the first thing we will put on the table is access to market. And then as we now begin to see that some of those entrepreneurs, they bring integrity, of course, like you said, they have their, we then begin to see which of them are sizable that we can then put equity in, invest equity and risk our capital in that company and run that company together. So in short, we are doing a lot of making sure that we stay within what private equity can do, and a limit to the number of SMEs you can invest in. I can probably invest in one here, one there, one there, but the ones I invest in will be sizable enough to then attract other people that can be in the supply chain or in the distribution chain of that particular investee company.
Thank you very, very much, Mr. Theophilus. It's quite insightful to know that you're willing to take a risk and invest in the agricultural sector. To our listeners, it is important to take note of all those opportunities that have been highlighted so that we can hold them responsible and accountable in the near future when we come together again to have this conversation. Sterling Bank has told us that they are very, very active in funding the agricultural space, piggybacking on the NISAL guarantee. NISAL is already structuring methods that will enable them use technology to drive the inclusion of every farmer that is in Nigeria, and most probably partner with other people outside Nigeria within the West Coast to provide some level of guarantee that will enable funding to flow. Mr. Theophilus also highlighted the fact that it is important for us as farmers and agripreneurs to put our books in order to show that we have some level of operational integrity, which will drive them to provide equity in our business. Having said that, I would like to ask again, Dr. Joshua, that what are the alternate source of funding, alternate structure that you're using with technology to drive the inclusion of smallholder farmers, knowing fully well that there is a challenge with collateralization. Yes, we know that we have the option of the NISAL guarantee. However, where the NISAL guarantee is not enough to cover the facility, what are the other options you're putting in place to ensure that smallholder farmers have access to funding? Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. One thing we need to know for every business is the issue of funding. And of course, just like you have the blood circulating in your circulatory system, you need the cash to circulate in your business. And that's the lifeware of the business. So for us, when we talk about funding smallholder farmers, Sterling actually is very keen in doing that. And basically, what we do, aside from NISA guarantee, for example, we have other organizations that provide form of guarantee to cushion the effect of this loan and to make it more attractive, as I used to say. For example, we have impact guarantee, we are working with them, and also CBN is there. Yes, CBN and NISA, the sister organization, we actually work with them in terms of guarantee. But let me say here that when it comes to funding smallholder farmers, we don't look at, oh, this is just Nigeria. We try to collaborate with other development institutions. Like recently, we got a fund from a particular organization, about 15.5 billion. And you know, when you look at the conventional funds we are talking about, most times, those funds you have on the balance sheet of every commercial bank, they are being lent out at double digits. But we try to see that smallholder farmers, double digit again, and for every other person in the agri space, actually, it will erode your profit when you go into double digit funds, because for you to break even and also to make, it will continue to erode your margin. So we feel, no, these smallholder farmers, they need to actually go into business and their businesses need to grow. And what did we do? We come up with a product paper that we say, okay, this product paper, we can lend at single digits. And what are those things we do? Like every other person know, yes, we are lending at single digit. If we are funding you as a smallholder farmer or an SME small businesses, we feel, okay, we can fund you with this amount, but then we form you into cooperative. And that's why the Joe cooperative is coming in. We form you into cooperatives, and as we know, normally when you are funding cooperative, you have them to cross guarantee themselves. And because you cannot get from them, that cross guarantee is very key. And also you have them to be committed. It could be 5% equity contribution, just something to make them to be committed. If, for example, if I'm funding like 2,500 farmers for production of maize in a particular location, it could be in Samina, Kaduna State. We can say, okay, if we are giving you 250,000 per acre, at least you can give us like per hectare, you can give us 5%, which will be like maybe 2,500 or 5,000 for a smallholder farmer. So these are some of the things. And again, we are now saying, if we are funding you as a smallholder farmer in your large numbers, again, to give us comfort, we now say, okay, let us have an off-taker for you that is providing a route to the market for you, so that you don't produce and you begin to look for market. So if we aggregate you together and then in a particular location, then we have an off-taker who has guaranteed to off-take from what you've produced. So when we are even going to production, we know that this produce, once it's out there, is a ready off-taker. So repayment will not be so much an issue. And the issue of default will not be so much at the same time. And another thing, in terms of digitization, let me just say this. Aside from we working in this space with the smallholder farmers, and you know the challenge smallholder farmers used to have before is the issue of middlemen, all those people that will aggregate their produce, perhaps they will hold it, and when the prices are up, those farmers, the aggregators or those LBAs, will now sell it to large cooperatives, people like Nestle, Flour Mills, and the rest. And we now come up with a digital platform, which we call Sabec. It's a sterling, actually, a blockchain kind of commodity exchange in collaboration with Afex. And this blockchain, this platform, digital platform, what does it do? We've onboarded over 170 people now, and farmers are bringing their produce to the nearest warehouse. We have close to 200 to 300 warehouses on that platform and in different locations digitally. So what do? If you are a farmer, let's say, for example, you are somewhere in maybe Dole Kena or whatever, or maybe in one place somewhere in Kano State, in a very remote location. Of course, our agency banking does the account opening and the event capturing and everything. We have an aggregator who will be located close to that place. Then they can collect your farm produce. And those farm produce, what do we do with them is to place them on the very platform. A lot of things about the platform. We grade your produce, we weigh it, and then it will be discounted. If you bring, let's say, 5 ton, 20 ton to the warehouse, we'll discount 70%.
Dr. Joshua, Dr. Joshua,
thank you.
We would appreciate learning more about that platform. And if you could just put on the chat box, how to hook up onto that your platform, it will do a whole lot of good for everyone that is listening today. We will want a situation whereby we can take questions from our attendees, because it is because of them that we're having this conversation, not between the four of us. So we need their feedback to be sure that they are in sync with what we have been talking about and all the things we've heard from our panelists, from the Joe mapping, Joe cooperative system, to ensure that every farmer is mapped within a particular location to form a cooperative instead of having a scattered cooperative, to having them cross-guarantee each other so that they can have access to single-digit funding, knowing fully well that double-digit funding is not a profitable way of projecting and funding smallholder farmers to ensure that they grow. Thirdly, to the fact that there's an opportunity, that there's equity investors ready to come on board your project or venture to ensure that you are sustainable and a profitable business. We will be happy to have your feedback as attendees, your questions as attendees, while I take the last conversation with Mr. Theophilus. And this conversation will be on the crowdfunding platform that he had initially spoken about, which is one. A lot of crowdfunding platform has sprung up because of the need to have access to funding. However, there's also an integrity issue that is rocking that same sector, which ought to be the alternative that we have. Yes, you have educated us that there's alternative in equity. However, we also know that there is a bigger alternative that is faster and more attractive, that is in crowdfunding. How do you think that we as a people, as entrepreneurs who are seeking funding in a very fast way, can find a way to prevent being trapped in the double-digit cycle that we find in the funding space as a whole? Thank you.
So I laughed when you talked about fast. You know, I would like to warn entrepreneurs about what is going on around the crowdfunding space and what we are seeing. One of my favorite quotes is from Warren Buffett, and he said, there's no matter how in a hurry you are, it takes 9 months to bring forth a baby. You won't gather 9 women and have that baby in 30 days, in 1 month. It takes 9 months to have a baby. That's wisdom. Look, these crowdfunding platforms that we've seen around, they are mostly useful for debt because they have raised those money from people who want to put in their money on a platform for 60 days and get 15% return, which means that over a year, that guy is looking at close to 90% return. Because if you multiply your 15% times probably 6 times in a year that guy could put that money on the platform, it's about 90% return. You as an entrepreneur, you need to be very careful. And we need to get back to the basics. Before you approach a bank to take loan into your business, you must have grown your business to a level where you are cash flow stable. You must have put your own savings in that money. You must have gone to family and friends to raise some money. You must have used some supplier credit to be able to bring your business to a point where anytime you inject debt into that business, the business has capacity to pay it back. What we have seen is that people want quick money, but it comes very, very expensive. I have a portfolio company that is in that kind of situation right now. They wanted the money so fast that they went to a microfinance kind of lender, and the interest rate was just out of this world. Today, they are struggling to meet up the principal payment and the interest payment on that because they wanted to grow very fast. So I want to warn entrepreneurs on this platform today to say, to sit down and categorize your capital. Capital is either equity, which is your sweat in the business, or you bring in another partner that can put patient capital. It is on top of patient capital that you put quick money or bank loans. You don't take bank loans to start a business from scratch. In fact, bank designed to fund a startup because of the nature of bank. So I'm warning everybody, let's make sure that our capital go after those, hot money. And one last statement about those hot money. The nature in Nigeria is when something is bubbling, everybody is jumping into it. Then you see this platform, you see that platform. And so what has happened is that we reached a bubble where you have so many people chasing money and then promising people, I'll pay you 20% in 90 days. And so we had so many money in the system, and there was no activity to drive to sweat that capital and be able to pay back the principal and be able to pay back the interest and leave some margin in the business. So we have to be careful on both sides about hot money. We have to be patient, and that's how sustainable businesses are built. You have to be patient. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Mr. Theophilus. There's a question in the chat box for Mr. Wakama. I think he has also responded, but it would be good for him to respond live. The question is from Mr. Oboho. I'm sorry if you're not a Mr. Mr. or Mrs. Oboho. How can NISA guarantee Farmers Association in terms of funds? In what way? What are the criteria that you would want the association to fulfill before you can guarantee them?
Thank you very much. I like the question, and it will help throw more light on what NISAL actually does. So NISAL is not a funding agency. What we are is a credit risk guarantee institution. We issue credit risk guarantees to funders who are willing to fund transactions. So for your cooperative, if you have a business plan that speaks to the things that you just highlighted, not just that you want money because everybody's collecting money, but you want money because you're producing, and what you're producing in the market has commercial value. There is market for what you're doing, and you know what you're doing. Then TIO will be willing to fund you or Dr. Joshua of Sterling Bank will be willing to fund you. We will provide our credit risk guarantee to Theo or to Sterling Bank to support your project. NISAL doesn't just give you guarantee so that you carry the guarantee to go and start looking for money. I've had instances where some people get offers and they tell their customers, go to NISAL and go and get a guarantee. That's an indication that, an understanding of how NISAL works is not there. So for us to be able to give a guarantee, there has to be a funder who is saying, I am willing to fund this transaction. And in the I am willing to fund this transaction because my guarantee is an off-balance sheet item. If it crystallizes, it's my book, it's my direct P&L that you're hitting. I need to understand the fundamentals of the transaction that you're using my guarantee to secure. So if Theo comes to me, or if Dr. Zira comes to me, give me your guarantee for this group of cooperatives, I need to see what the cooperative is doing. I need to look at the market fundamentals of what they're doing. Just like Theo pointed out clearly about what money that a lot of people are chasing and they talk. There has to be a plan so that we don't continue this thing that makes it impossible to fund agribusiness. Where people just think that money goes to agriculture, and when you lose the money, you say, oh, it's agriculture, you know the way it is. No, it has to be dealt with as a business that is sustainable and pay its cost. When you talked about double-digit loan, in my mind, I laughed and I asked one question. Is there anybody with an intervention fund that is selling at subsidized price in the market? There's nobody. Everybody sells at the current market price, taking into account the cost of inflation. You ask for subsidized loans, you're already making a loss on that loan from onset. If you're talking of loans subsidized for infrastructural purposes, because of the deficit to have infrastructure, processing and all that, I can understand. But if you say because it's agriculture, give us subsidized loan, we don't sell agricultural produce on this thing. But that's the discussion for another day. So basically, for you to qualify for our guarantee, the business case has to be there. Profitability has to be clear. And then we issue you for farmers, for those that are in primary production, we can issue guarantees up to 75% of the loan amount. That's the highest that we give. And that's for primary production because we understand that's where the highest risk is. And then it comes down to 50% for processors. And when you're doing an integrated project where the risk are almost taken care of and all that, we do about 30%. Thank you.
Thank you so much for throwing more light onto into what you do and the criteria that is required for you to access the NISAL funding. You emphasized something today, and I want to take you up on that. You said NISAL does not is not a funder; it is just a guarantee agency. However, we have seen people in the space complaining that NISAL do not give loans. How do you intend to correct that notion? That's one. My second question to you is that notion has deepened investors' confidence. Also, the crowdfunding, the failed crowdfunding platforms, not one, not two, not three, has also made investors to lose confidence in the agricultural sector. What are you doing, either conventionally or unconventionally, to boost investors' confidence again in the agricultural sector? Those are my two questions to you, Mr. Wankama. Thank you.
Thank you. So let's start the first question. Let me take the first one. I said we're not a funding agency. Yes, NISAL doesn't fund. Mind you, there are two NISALs. There's a NISAL Microfinance. NISAL Microfinance is an entity that is set up as a retail finance institution that gives finance. You can collect a loan from NISAL Microfinance. This NISAL is the NISAL that issues credit risk guarantees. Now, for it to be clear, our operations when Dr. Zira was explaining, he told you that they were in partnership and we work with them. So we need a funder for our guarantee to have meaning. There has to be someone who is going to fund a transaction. Our counterparty is not the beneficiary. Our counterparty is a financial institution. The financial institution who can now be an investor, who can be a bank, it can be a conventional development finance institution, it can be a retail finance institution. Those are our counterparties. So Eze and Sons is not actually a counterparty to NISAL. Eze and Son is a beneficiary of a loan from an entity that is our counterparty. I don't know if that explains that very well. Then on the part of your meat, yeah, I didn't hear you.
Okay, just to reemphasize so that I'm sure that we got you correctly. You're
Okay.
saying that there are two different entities owned by CBN called NISAL. One is NISAL, one is NISAL Microfinance Bank.
Exactly.
NISAL is the one that provides the guarantee, while NISAL Microfinance Bank is the one that provides the intervention funding.
Exactly.
For NISAL guarantee, you need a third party that will provide the physical cash
Yes.
to the farmer.
Yes.
Okay, so I just want to be sure that we understood you correctly and what you're saying. Onto the deepening the investors' confidence in the sector. What do you have to say about that? We have just 15 more minutes to go.
So I will piggyback on what you said. The quote by Warren Buffett that said, "No matter how you do pregnancy, it must take 9 months."
Yeah.
The deepening when entities came out, a lot of them sought NISAL guarantee for their transactions, and I insisted, or rather NISAL insisted, let's see the fundamentals of your business. Let's understand how you intend to make these returns. Because if you're not able to make those returns, you have created a vicarious liability for NISAL for the inefficiency in the system you have created. So that's why you can see that we're not exposed on that aspect. Because every sound financial mind knows that these things don't work the way they're presented. For investors, those who want to invest, there are structured investment. I told you about the Jew cooperatives.
Yeah.
Jew cooperatives also produce, and they need funding. And for our Jew cooperatives, even if the ticket size is 1 billion, there are individuals that are beneficiaries. Whereas are for the individual farmers, not for the large ticket size. And as such, is an ingenious way of, excuse me, is an ingenious way of making sure that everybody enjoys that 75% credit guarantee for primary production. So to give confidence, we are open to discussion from investors, with financiers who want to put money into agriculture and all that, on how to give them the safety net, how to put safety nets around them. That's what we do, and that's what we use our guarantee.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Mr. Ezdi, for that clarity. Some of the attendees are asking for your contact in terms of phone number. I know you've shared your email. If it is possible to share direct contact, you can share through the chat box. However, I would like to go to Dr. Joshua. A question just came in and said, what are the funding options for those that are aggregators or processor of shared nuts? What are the funding options for them, given the fact that you provide single-digit funding and Sterling Bank is a major player in funding agricultural activity in Nigeria? Thank you.
In terms of funding for crops, we do for Shea butter, yes. If you are into shea butter aggregation, we already have a product in-house, as I said, that we are working with one international organization, that's DFI. And under this scheme, we can fund your various activities, right from the upstream to the downstream segment of the agricultural value chain. And now in terms of aggregation of shea butter, of course, shea nuts or whatever, we can actually meet with you and discuss with you. However, we have funding in-house. If you are doing it on a small scale, we need to know what is the volume you are doing. And if you are aggregating, who are you selling it to? These are just a few things. Who is your off-taker, or what's the intent of aggregation? Are you processing it further? Do you want to maybe do a kind of some value addition? So we need to understand all this. But as I said, we have a funding in-house at 9% single digit, and that funding actually is for both men and women. You know, when we finance, we also look at gender, and we are gender sensitive. And so that funding, that 15.5 billion, as I said, is actually about 70% of it goes to women and 30% for men, majorly between the ages of 18 to 35 years. So if you are in there and you are into the business, you can access as an entrepreneur, you can access from 5 million to 25 million. If you guys are actually in a cooperative, you can access up to like 20 to 25 million. And are you like a prime anchor, a kind of, you have a company and you have aggregated farmers under you? There are some actually, when we talk about crowdfunding, there are some that are not crowdfunding, but they're actually like those that work with farmers. We call them prime anchors, like Thrive Agri. These are people that have farmers under them. If you have a farmer under you and you want to go even into production or only aggregation, you can access up to 250 million. So that funding for you is there at that single digit. So you can get to talk to us. I've brought my number on the, my email. I will now drop my number so that we can take the conversation further. Thank you.
Awesome, awesome. This is some great news for the ecosystem of agriculture,
Yes.
that women are prioritized. We need women to rise up and take the 70% funding that is at 9% from Sterling Bank. We are not going to be sitting back again. I'm taking you up on this offer, Dr. Joshua, as a woman myself, to mobilize more women to come to Sterling Bank to enjoy this funding opportunity.
Yes.
But what I hear you say loud and clear, thank you so much. What I hear from this conversation, what I have heard loud and clear from all our panelists today, who I would really want to thank for their deep insight and sharing their experience with us, is that, one, agriculture requires patient capital. We need to understand that there are different types of funding available for us. One, there's the commercial funding, there's the equity funding, and there is the fast funding. It all depends on where you want to play. However, for you to access good guarantee scheme, it is important for you as a smallholder farmer to be within a Joe cooperative, where it will be mapped and everybody can cross-guarantee each other for you to enjoy NISAL new way of funding, supporting smallholder farmers. We've also heard that NISAL is not a funding body, but a guaranteeing body. That the funding part of CBN is the NISAL Microfinance Bank that provides the intervention. So when you are having challenges in terms of raising funds, you would know who to channel that challenge in NISAL and within the NISAL group too. Another learning for me today is the fact that women are prioritized in the agricultural sector, and the funding ecosystem wants more women to take part in agriculture, and they're going to support women all the way through. Most important is the fact that technology is taking a center stage in funding for agriculture, for the agricultural space. Technology in terms of mapping, in terms of database, and in terms of guaranteeing, because it provides some level of integrity of your operation. So it is important to start using technology to drive your growth so that we can all enjoy and access better funding opportunity. There is the equity side of the business, funding, equity side of funding that is being anchored by ARM and other equity partners. It is important for us to know that these funders are available. We just need to put operational integrity in our business so that we can have access to them. To all the attendees, we say a very big thank you to you for taking out time. We saw that a lot of you have stayed till this particular moment from the beginning of the session till now. We really appreciate you. We thank you, and we hope that you got a good learning points from this conversation today. For us to end, I would like to have just one line statement from each of the panelists, starting with Dr. Joshua, about funding and how it impacts the ecosystem. Just a one-liner, please. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Actually, it's been a great pleasure discussing the issue of funding smallholder farmers, in particular on this platform. And I must say that the smallholder farmers who are at the bottom of the pyramid has been actually our main focus in the recent time. And I believe what we need to do is to get ourselves ready for funding. Just get yourselves in your cooperative and organize yourself and approach financial institution. Come to Sterling, we are ready to fund your businesses and to see you grow in terms of expanding your business. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Joshua. I will now go to Mr. Eze Nwakama to just give us a one-liner about how we can move forward as smallholder farmers in the funding space. Thank you.
So I'll quickly say, I'll use an idiom to explain it. The bank is like a thief. If a thief goes into a place to steal, it has two ways of escape. While you're bringing your transactions and you're thinking of funding, also think of how the loan will be repaid to make it easy for you to access those funds. And it makes it easier for guarantees to be issued. Thank you.
Thank you very, very much. Mr. Eze is telling us in simple English that we need to be proactive with our finances and understand our financial standing so that we do not have integrity issues. I will now hand over to Mr. Theophilus to tell us how he's going to move us forward from the equity side. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you, everyone. My parting word, remember all the financing partners that have spoken today. We are all willing to participate. We are all willing to support you in your business. But my parting word for everyone is this: have a vision, start small, scale fast, but have integrity. Very important. Have your vision, start small, scale fast with integrity. Thank you very much, everyone. Thank you for the opportunity.
That is an amazing way to end this session. Integrity is a key factor in funding, in doing business as a whole. And that is why some organizations have come up with the idea of having farmers in a database that is verifiable with unique identification number, so that any funder that wants to approach them will just go to that database to verify if they have integrity or not, and if their location truly exists. We know that the funding sector has also suffered a huge blow from the issues of integrity. Once again, I would like to thank you all for staying back and listening this afternoon about conventional and alternate funding for MSME in the agricultural space. We thank the organizers of this webinar, because it has been an enlightening one for me and very insightful. Thank you to the panelists, because without you, we wouldn't have had this insightful conversation. And I would like to hand over to Madam Okwe this afternoon. The contact details of all the panelists are on the chat box. Please do reach out to them and let us keep networking so that we can move the sector forward. Good afternoon, everyone.
Wow, Ms. Madedo, thank you so much. What a beautifully moderated session. The session itself was insightful, revealing, and highly educative. I'd like to say a big thank you to all our panelists for today. Please permit me to quickly introduce Mr. Eze Nwakama. It was a slight error not to introduce him when we started. He's the AGM Agricultural Value Chain Finance and Investment Services at NISAL PLC. Mr. Wakama, it's a pleasure to have you once again. Thank you so much for being a part of today's colloquium. Thank you, Dr. Zira. Thank you, Ms. Madedo. Thank you, Mr. Onodeko. We appreciate you so much for being a part of the West Africa Agribusiness Show Colloquium. I know most of you are seeing me for the first time. We spoke mostly on phone and through emails. We thank you so much. We appreciate your time. We appreciate all our participants here today. And we say a big thank you to our sponsors, Famson Company Limited and Livestock Feeds PLC, and also to our partners, Rome Business School, the West Africa Fertilizer Association, FEWASI, Federation of West Africa Chambers of Commerce and Industries, NASIMA, and others. Sorry, sort of skipped my mind right now. So before we end, please, would like to quickly run the communique for the 2021 WAS Colloquium, which held from 23rd to 25th February 2021. It will be shared live on our screen while I read. I'll continue reading while it comes up, please. The West Africa Agribusiness Show held our 2021 Colloquium virtually from Tuesday 23rd to Thursday 25th February 2021, with panelists dissecting issues centered on the theme, Accelerating Food Revolution in Africa. The outcomes of the discussions are captured and presented below. The aim of Food Revolution Drive across the globe seeks to birth advancement through sustainable development of varieties in the food and agri sector, creation of employment, promotion of the use of good agricultural practices, safer and sustainable food and inputs. Africa is confronted with population growth and how to feed them amidst other challenges facing the continent. 80% of staple food grown in Africa is in the purview of smallholder farmers. However, their low level of productivity can be attributed to non-accessibility to improve technology, to modernize their operations, poor physical infrastructure, rising insecurity driven by unemployment, lack of access to inputs, inadequate funding. The colloquium called on the governments across the region to place the agriculture sector on the front burner of our agenda by allocating resources, making conscious effort to account for such resources, create enabling environment to leverage on private sector investments, collaborate with and encourage private sector involvement for sustainability, provision of adequate infrastructure, and catalyze financing. Public-private partnerships was emphasized for the sustainability of the agriculture sector. Hence, government is enjoined to create an enabling environment to leverage on private sector investment and create incentives to attract more investments, which will drive the food revolution agenda. The West Africa Agribusiness Show platform was recommended for the convergence of agribusiness stakeholders in the public and private sector for continued dialogue on progressive agenda for the agriculture sector. There is an urgent need for education. I'm on serial number 7, please. There is an urgent need for education and creation of awareness on the benefits of data gathering, analysis, sharing, and for decision-making in agriculture and agribusiness, as only a data-driven endeavor in this digital age can fully and efficiently fulfill its potential. Farmers associations, agribusiness cooperatives are key in creating synergies to accelerate the developmental targets in the industry. The need for deeper and updated understanding of the agribusiness value chain by all stakeholders was emphasized. The colloquium advised that strict adherence with regards to issues on official controls, delivery and enforcement as it affects quality of food, preservation and sufficiency should not be compromised. A change of narrative and increased awareness of success stories in the agriculture sector are needed to encourage youth involvement. The roles of youth vanguards, champions, as well as lobbyists, advocacy groups are key in achieving this. Youth-sensitive policies within the broader scope of agricultural policies require attention, and the participation of youths at the design stage is critical. The colloquium emphasized the role of governments as a nexus between the private sector, research community, academia, and other stakeholders. The Africa Continental Free Trade Area Agreement is a laudable initiative which presents Africa with a unique opportunity to unleash its economic potentials for inclusive growth and sustainable development, plays an important role in intra-regional trading, promotes agricultural transformation, and improves competitiveness through the regional agricultural value chain. The AfCFTA member countries require accompanying policies to improve production capacities and promote investment for value addition. Regional governments should be conscious of externalities that may impede on AfCFTA, reflect strongly and learn from other regional agreements that has been in place in other parts of the world. The colloquium is e-signed today, 25th February, by Okwe Ladipo for the West Africa Agribusiness Show. On this note, ladies and gentlemen, we will be drawing the curtains on the 2021 edition of the West Africa Agribusiness Show Colloquium. A big thank you once again to all our panelists for the 3 days, all our moderators, our sponsors, our partners, our MC, Mrs. Modupe Olubanjo. Thank you so much, Ma, for being part of this event. On behalf of the convener, Mr. Idowu Ashenuga, and my humble self, it's a big thank you, and bye-bye from here. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you all. Have a pleasant evening. Thank you so much.
And you too. Okay, bye.
Bye. Thank you.